In this video, we will discuss subquery in Proc SQL. So what is subquery? Subquery just means one query nested within another query. Consider this example. Suppose we want to find department gender combinations, so whose average of exam 1 is larger than the average of female students in math department. Yeah, so let's look at this example. Okay, so first I load the data. So the data just contains the name, gender, department, and exam scores of some students, right? So the question is, we want to find the department gender combination, so whose average of exam 1 is higher than the average of female students in math department. So let's just try to solve this in the usual way. So of course, so first we may want to find the average exam 1 score for all department and gender combination, right? I guess so we know how to do that. We will use Proc SQL. Okay, so notice we need to end this by quit. So then we will select all department, gender, and also the average of exam 1 as ex1 mean, right? So select all those columns from grades. So this is name of the data set, group by department and gender. Yeah, so by this way, so SAS will compute or average of exam 1, so within the department gender combination. Yeah, so this is the result. So for female math student, right, so this is this row, so their average is 81.5. So basically we just want to find the combinations, those basically find the rows in here, so larger than or equal to this 81.5. Yeah, larger than or equal to, right? So if you look at here, so we should in the result we should have 1, 2, 3, and 4 row, right? So then what you can do is, well, so maybe you will have like having the mean of the exam 1 greater than or equal to 81.5, right? See, then if you run this one, basically updated query. So in the result, we have 4 rows. And there is a disadvantage of this approach. Yeah, so because, so first you run the code twice, right? So the next is, so you read a value from the output and fill it in. Yeah, so this is not a good habit of programming. Yeah, because when you copy paste numbers and you may make mistake, right? Yeah, and so what we do is, so we will do this in subquery in this way. You can see, so all this part are the same as this part I just wrote here. So the only difference is, so see, for this guy, 81.5, so it is replaced by this one. So this is a query, right? So notice, see, what is this query? So I just I just compute the average of exam 1 from this grade, where a department equals math and gender equal to female. See, if you run this query, Proc SQL, if you run this query, right, see, this just computes the average basically for observations in this data set, right, for all the female math students. So if you run this query, the result is 81.5, right? Yeah, so basically this part, yeah, so just serves as the same purpose as you type 81.5 in here. Yeah, so this is just called a subquery. So, and we include that in parentheses. Yeah, so this is a query inside of a query, right? Yeah, so if you are familiar with, after you get familiar with SQL, I think so it's easy to read, right? Yeah, so basically you just want to select department, gender, and so the average score, right? So those average are computed, grouped by each department and the gender combination. So we also want to keep those average larger than, than the average of math and female math student. Yeah, so this is subquery. Then we mention some operator that can be convenient for subquery. So the first one is any. Any just means value that meet a specified condition with respect to any one of the value returned by a subquery. For example, so in this while statement, so you may say the date of birth is smaller than any of those. So those just see, you just select date of birth from this data set, while the job code is this one. So this just means, so the date of birth for all employees whose job code is FA3. And so for this while statement, so just means we only want to select observations, so whose date of birth is earlier than any of the people here, right? Yeah, so basically means select rows so whose date of birth is smaller than, right? Than than those of any employees in the job code with job code FA3. And so in many cases, the any operator can be dropped. Yeah, so basically we can just write in this way. So we can just use a max instead. So this will be more efficient. The reason is, for this any, so for this comparison, so the date of birth so will be compared with any number of here. Yeah, because we just want to know. So as long as it is smaller than any of them, right? So basically, if this is smaller than the maximum of that date of birth, yeah, so then the result is true, right? So then we only run this query once, right? And so then we just compare the date of birth with one number instead of many possible numbers. So this is a very similar called OR. Yeah, so OR just value that meet a specified condition with respect to all the value returned by a subquery. Yeah, so we use OR, okay. In many cases, yeah, so this can be similarly, yeah, so can be replaced by the minimum of the date of birth, right? Yeah, because so if the date of birth is smaller than everyone, yeah, so you select it by this query, right? So then you only need to find the minimum. Yeah, so if the date of birth is smaller than minimum, so then this is true. Yeah, because so in this way you only need to compare one number with another one number. Yeah, so instead of many numbers here. The last one is exist or not exist. So exist just will be true. So if the subquery return at least one row. Yeah, so not exist just means the subquery returns no data, right? Yeah, so well exist. So just means, so if in this query just means, so if there are any employee so with a job code FA3, so then this is true, right? So otherwise this is false.